Well, today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and today there were events all across the country honoring MLK and the legacy he left behind. Here in Madison, the Martin Luther King Jr. Coalition of Madison and Dane County hosted an event at the Overture Center. This was the 39th year the event was held and featured a lineup of speakers and performers, all reflecting a theme of progress and equality. A member of the King Coalition says it's important to not forget the impact the civil rights movement has had.
I just think it's important because we need to not forget where the movement has come from, and we need to not forget where the movement is going.
The event's keynote speaker tonight was Dr. Terrence Roberts, best known for his role as one of the Little Rock Nine, the first 9 African-American students to integrate at a school in Little Rock, Arkansas, after the passing of Brown v. Board of Education.